What's up, my pilots? Poncho here. Welcome back to Let's Play 999. In this episode, we begin our second playthrough. We're going to select Begin with Memories. That way, we can start with the knowledge of previous playthroughs retained. And basically, we'll get credit for our previous run, because that does affect some things later on. This game is fiction. All names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. Alright, so now that we've already seen this text, I can hold the arrow key to the right, and we will zip, zam, fast forward through it. So as you can see, we don't have to actually watch any of this. So, for this first, for this first replay-through, for this second playthrough, we're going to make some different choices from last time. And our puzzle has just started. The first thing we're going to do differently is we're going to make our very first choice different when we choose between door 4 or 5. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this puzzle, and we'll skip ahead to the next interesting thing. We'll break out of this cabin, go up the hall, meet the rest of the characters, and probably start back at the incident with the 9th man and the knife. To facilitate solving these puzzles quickly, I've written down the combinations for these sorts of things, so anything that has a numerical answer, I'm already going to have for the puzzles that we've already solved. Which for this run-through, since it's only our second, will just be this very first one. Once we're done with this this was the wrong combination. Once we're done with this first puzzle, we won't have any repeats for this next run. I've organized the first few playthroughs to show basically everything. Not reset, I want to turn the key. What am I doing? Anyway, let's cut ahead. So, if you want to see how to find the combination to these puzzles, or at least for this first puzzle, you'll need to watch the first playthrough. And I highly recommend that you watch the first playthrough. Don't skip ahead in this series, or it's not going to make any sense. You'll get spoilers, and you won't even know they're spoilers until it's too late. And so here we are back in the starting hall. As a quick refresher, let's look at Junpei's remembrance of the characters. Number 1 is Ace. Number 2 is Snake. 3 was Santa. 4 was Clover. 5 was Junpei's number. Akane was 6, and Junpei had given her the codename of June. 7 was 7. And 8 was Lotus. That meant that 8 of them, including Junpei, had revealed their bracelet numbers. There was still one person left. He was the man with the glasses and hair like a bird's nest. He hadn't said anything since they'd been on the stairs, and he didn't look like the sort of person who was inclined to conversation. The 9th man, bracelet number 9. Let's move forward, shall we? And so the 9th man takes Clover by knife point and forces the others to cooperate with him, allowing him through door number 5. He meets a terrible fate. The explosion rocked the room. Instinctively they ducked, then stood up slowly when they realized there was no danger. No one spoke. Silence filled the room. In that silence, the electronic tone that echoed across the room sounded as loud as a gunshot. All eyes turned toward it. It had come from the device mounted next to the door. The display changed from engaged to vacant. Let's see if we can open him. 7, the mountain, swallowed hard. Junpei nodded and placed his hand on the scanner panel. A red asterisk appeared in the LCD panel. The device had registered Junpei's bracelet number, 5. His was not enough, however. At least 2 more people were needed. Junpei asked, which pair? Snake and Seven. Snake, Seven, do you think you could give me a hand here? The pun was a little too on the nose, but the mood was still grim. Both Snake and Seven lifted their hands silently. Slowly, each of them placed their hand on the scanner panel. Digital root makes 5. They'd fulfilled the conditions. If they were to pull the lever on the side... Are you guys ready? I'm gonna open it. Junpei grabbed the lever and looked back over his shoulder. They stiffened and nodded. Junpei nodded back and set his mouth in a grim line. Then he slowly lowered the lever. There was a metallic groan, and the door slid open. A breath of air drifted out of it, carrying a stench that nearly made them gag. Junpei grimaced and put a hand over his mouth. Oh my god. Good god. Lotus and Ace shuddered. Seven grunted. Whoa, that's pretty bad. Even Santa's voice shook. He blew up. It appeared that Santa was right. The hallway on the other side of the door was splattered with chunks of torn flesh and dark red blood. The shriek echoed across the room. It had come from June. Then her strength left her and she dropped. As Junpei turned to catch her, the door groaned shut. She crumpled to the floor. June, you okay? Junpei dropped to his knees and put his arm around her shoulders. That was when he noticed. Her whole body was feverish. She was radiating intense heat. What the hell? Where'd this fever come from? June didn't answer. Her face looked like wax, and her whole body began to shake. Alright, let's just rest for a minute, okay? You think you can walk? She nodded weakly. Junpei lifted June to her feet and guided her to a nearby chair. Here we go. As gently as he could, he sat her down in it. How are you feeling? Are you alright? She nodded, and as she did, a single huge tear rolled down the side of her face. Why? Why did this happen? Her voice cracked, misery, broken by grief and choked by sobs. Why did this happen? Junpei spun around. Do any of you know what the fuck is going on here? Who's Zero? What's this nonary game? Come on, anybody? Anything? What the hell is going on? What are we doing here? No one spoke. Ace, Snake, Santa, Clover, Seven, and Lotus. They simply stood there, 7 pairs of downcast eyes and 7 grim lines for mouths. June's body shook with silent sobs. They slowed as the minutes ticked by, and eventually they stopped. Then suddenly, in the cold, heavy silence that had enveloped them like a thick fog, a bell began to ring. The clock in the central hall, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And then on the 10th ring it stopped. The sound of the bell faded away into silence. It's 10 o'clock then. Ace said what each of them had been thinking. That means it's been an hour since Zero's little announcement. Seven's deep voice echoed across the room. Fuck! I've had enough of this crap. Santa leapt to his feet, his fists clenched. How long are we gonna pussyfoot around like this? We've only got 8 hours until this time limit Zero was going on about is up. Let's get going already. Go, go! Santa's outburst fell on deaf ears. No one seemed to agree with him. They stared back at him, their eyes blank and their faces tired. Eventually, Lotus spoke. No, I refuse. I'm not going to end up like him. Him? You mean the 9th man? Of course. Who else? In his mind's eye, Junpei saw the corpse again. The dark reddish-black pool of blood. The scattered pieces of flesh. Organs strewn across the floor like the blossoming of a grotesque flower. The explosion that had torn through his body had been powerful. The 9th man's neck had been twisted at an odd angle. Junpei suspected the detonation had thrown him against the wall. Half of his face was crushed, and the other half was covered in blood. Most of his abdomen had been emptied, either by the explosion or by gravity. He landed on his back, and stark white ribs jutted up out of his chest like the legs of some macabre crab. Junpei felt something flip in his stomach. I think he just screwed up. Eyebrows went up, and Santa continued. He probably set up some kind of trap, and that killed him. I'm not going to screw up like that. I'm getting out of here alive. Whatever Snake was laughing at, Santa did not find particularly humorous. What's so goddamn funny? Oh, my apologies. You were just so very confident. I couldn't help myself. What the fuck? I think you've mistaken the situation. Huh? The ninth man's death. It had nothing to do with a trap. Or at least, not the sort of trap you imagine it did. Then, he broke one of Zero's rules. That was why he died. Quite simple if you think about it. You still don't? Alright. How about you take a moment and think back to what Zero said? Specifically, what did he say about the number of people? He said only 3 to 5 people can pass through one numbered door, right? And after that, you've forgotten the relevant part. What did Zero say? Santa furrowed his brow in thought. Junpei fought back. Zero said, this is the right answer, so we're going to say it again, that everyone who verified had to go. All those who enter must leave, and all who enter must contribute, right? I think it was something like that. Whatever it was, it means that groups of less than 3 or more than 5 can't go through. That is correct. A gold star for you, Junpei. Snake inclined his head toward Junpei. The ninth man, however, broke that rule. He tried to pass through a numbered door by himself. That was why he was executed. Then Zero's watching us from somewhere, making sure we don't break any rules. Oh, I'm not so sure of that. Why not? Because this execution system is entirely automatic. You didn't notice? There's no need for him to monitor us. What do you mean? Snake looked at Seven with what only could be described as pity and sighed. Very well. I see it must be me who tells you. I've waited long enough, I suppose. I had hoped Zero might spare me the trouble, but that seems increasingly unlikely. He couldn't see them, of course, but perhaps Snake sensed the confused eyes upon him. When Ace spoke, he gave words to everyone else's thoughts. Do you know something? Well, I know a great many things, but yes. What is it you know? Here. Snake removed a card from the pocket of his jacket. With a flourish, she presented it to Ace, who took a close look at it and spoke. Come on now, what's the point of giving me this? Give me that! Santa snatched the card from Ace, but his expression of disgust quickly turned to one of confusion. Huh? What the hell is this? Seven tugged it out of Santa's hands. Huh, I see. The card went from Seven to Lotus, from Lotus to June, and finally to Junpei. He looked at it and understood. This is Braille. Braille, the written language of the blind. The card was covered in small embossed bumps. Junpei could recognize it, but he certainly couldn't read it. Sorry guys, I can't read this. Junpei handed the card back to Snake, who nodded at him with a small smirk. Okay, that was fun. What's so important about that card? I found it in my pocket. I can only assume it is a message from Zero. From Zero? A message? What does it say? Suddenly, everyone was crowding around Snake, desperate to hear what the message said. Santa especially looked as if he were about to grab hold of Snake and shake the answers from him. Snake raised his hand. Calm down now. No need to panic. You don't need to force me. I'll read it. Junpei swallowed hard and waited for him to start. He was not the only one. Presently, Snake began to read, his voice calm. His fingers glided over the tiny bumps as he spoke. Bracelet number 2. Since you are not blessed with sight, I shall bless you, and only you, with information. I shall tell you of the function of the red, of the dead, and of the bracelet. The red is the recognition device. It will verify your number. Besides every numbered door, you will find a red. The dead is the deactivation device. It does exactly what it says. Once you have passed through the numbered door, you must use the dead to stop the detonator in your bracelet. But perhaps you're wondering, what does this detonator detonate? I'm afraid this may be something of a surprise. I have placed a small bomb inside of you, and the people with whom you are about to meet. You swallowed it while you were unconscious. I have no doubt that by the time you read this note, the bomb will have passed your stomach and found its way into your small intestine. In other words, you will be unable to regurgitate it. I suggest you do not try. As I mentioned before, the bracelet on your left hand contains a detonator. Think of it as a remote fuse or timer for the bomb in your body. There's only one condition which will cause it to detonate. That condition is that you enter a numbered door. Once you have done so, the timer will activate, no matter who you may be. You will have 81 seconds. If, after that time, the detonator has not been deactivated, it will send a signal to the bomb in your body, instructing it to explode. In order to deactivate the detonator, every person who verified their number at the red must also verify their numbers at the dead. Once all numbers have been verified by the dead, you need only pull the lever at its side and the countdown will cease. Anyone who does not verify their number at the red will find themselves unable to verify their number at the dead. That is to say, if you should pass through a numbered door without first verifying your number at the red, in 81 seconds, you will be dead. You must also keep in mind that the numbered doors will close automatically after 9 seconds have passed. So long as the door is open, the dead will not function. You would do well to remember this. Lastly, let us discuss how to remove the bracelets. There are only two ways to do so. 1. You escape from this ship. 2. Your heart rate reaches 0. In other words, once the bracelet is taken outside the confines of the ship, or detects that its wearer's heartbeat has fallen to 0, it will shut down automatically. There is no other way to remove your bracelet. If you attempt to force it off or disable the detonator, the bomb within you will immediately explode. This is all the information which I can impart to you. How you choose to use it is for you to decide. If used wisely, you can eliminate those who might be a danger to you. For a time, you would be able to control your fate. I wish you the best of luck. Snake finished reading and carefully returned the card to his pocket. The message had been lengthy, but its meaning was clear. Only those who verified their numbers at the red could pass through the numbered doors. Teams could not increase or decrease their numbers. The reds, deads, and bracelets enforced the rules. They were judge, jury, and executioner. After a discussion of their situation, the group decides to search the room once more. By the time they finished their search, 1.5 of their 9 hours were gone. All they had to show for it was impatience. Man, look, we only got 7.5 hours left, okay? You really sure you want to just sit around? No one was going to argue this time. Very well, then. There's only one way for us to proceed. Sure not gonna be fun running around knowing we gotta jump when Sarah says jump. Well, it's stupid to just sit around here doing nothing. Thanks to Snake's card, at least we have some idea of how this all works. Correct. So long as we follow the rules, we will most likely be alright. But what? Who's gonna go in which door? June looked toward the numbered doors. Oh yeah, that's right. We can't have any more than 5 people in one door. All 8 of us can't go in the same door. Then it would seem we will have to split up. Wait. Lotus looked terrified. I'm telling you now, there is no way in hell I'm going into door 5. Come now, don't be selfish. Call me whatever the hell you want. I'm not going in there. If I'm going to have to walk around in all that blood, I'd rather stay here. And we were doing so well. Ace shook his head sadly. Sorry, but I ain't going in there either. Someone else can go into door 5. Oh, Santa, not you too. Hey man, I just bought these shoes. If you think I'm getting some creepy dude's blood all over them, you got another thing coming. That was the last straw. What the hell, man? Weren't you the one who kept saying we should get going? Yeah, so? Doesn't mean I wanted to go in door 5. Oh god. There was an awkward silence. Finally, Seve spoke. Fine. I'll go in door 5. I can't go in there alone, though. Anyone else willing to come with me? There was another long silence. This time, Snake was the one to break it. I'll go. What? Don't worry, you'll be fine. We may part now, but I'm certain we'll meet again later. How do you know that? Because I do. That's not an answer. If you're going, I'm going too. I'm going into door 5. What am I going to do with you? There's nothing you have to do. Ace stepped forward. If I join you, the problem is solved, correct? 7 is 7 and Snake is 2. And if you add Clover's 4 and my 1, the digital root will be 5. That works out. Oh, it works perfectly! The 4 of us can go in door 5.
Wait, what about the other 4? What's their digital root gonna be?
Junpei did a quick mental calculation. Lotus, Santa, June, and Junpei remained. Their bracelet numbers were 8, 3, 6, and 5. Their digital root is 4. He repeated what he determined. It's 4. Add up our 4 bracelet numbers, and the digital root is 4. Then we can go in door 4. Yeah, well, that worked out well. Junpei ran over the team assignments in his head one more time. 4 people would go in door 5. 7, Snake, Clover, and Ace. 4 people would go in door 4. Lotus, Santa, June, and Junpei. Junpei had to ask himself if the teams were what he really wanted. Beyond door 5 was what remained of the 9th man. He never wanted to see that thing again, but something in him said it would be unwise not to examine the corpse even a little closer. Of course, if he went through door 5, he wouldn't be going with Lotus and Santa. True, it would be possible for him to bring June with him through door 5, that would mean she would have to see the horrific carnage that waited there. Junpei didn't want that. Junpei was torn. Should he stay silent and go through door 4? Or should he stop them all and insist on door 5? As he turned his options over and over in his mind, Ace spoke up. Alright then, it seems we've reached a conclusion. Shall we go? He began to walk toward door 5. Clover and Snake followed, with 7 a short distance behind. Junpei decided that it had to be door 5. Hey, wait! Junpei's cry echoed across the room. The 4 people walking toward the door stopped and turned back toward him. I want to go through door 5 too. The words were scarcely out of his mouth when June spoke up. What? What are you saying, Junpei? If you're going through that door, then I'm going with you. He turned around to look at her. No, you can't. I can't take you with me. Why? Well, you know what's in there, don't you? Are you sure you want to see that? June opened her mouth as if to say something, but instead closed it again and looked at the floor. Junpei felt an ache in his chest at her clear distress, but the choice was not his to make. There was nothing else he could do. Junpei turned away from June, doing his best to silence his turbulent emotions. Please, let me go into door 5. 7 scratched his head and looked at the young man.
Man, now we're right back where we started, you know that?
Junpei's bracelet number is 5, right? If you're going to add Junpei, then we must subtract 5 from the rest of us. Snake turned to Ace. Ace, please take good care of Clover. Oh, all right. That's fine. Don't go away! You need to listen to me, Clover. Go to door 4 with the others. No! Don't be so selfish. Snake's tone was harsh. Tears welled up in Clover's eyes. She bit her lip and did her best to fight them off. Snake's expression softened, and he put his arms around Clover. He held her close and then whispered into her ear, "You'll be fine. Just relax." It looked as though he whispered 2 or 3 more words, but whatever they were, Junpei didn't hear them. He couldn't help but wonder what the other man had said. Snake pulled back from his sister, his eyes kind and inquiring. Okay, I understand. Her voice was barely audible from where Junpei stood. Before long, new teams were assembled. Those going into door 5, 7, Snake, and Junpei. Those going into door 4, Lotus, Santa, June, Ace, and Clover. Seven, Snake, and Junpei scanned their numbered bracelets in quick succession. The screen of the red showed 3 asterisks. Alright then, let's go. Junpei glanced around one last time, his hand resting on the lever of the red. Okay. Please be careful. Concern was written plainly across her face. Junpei looked at her in the eye, and gave what he hoped was a reassuring nod. He pulled the lever. With the sharp clack of a lock releasing, the door swung open. Ahead of them in the small hallway were the pitiful remains of the 9th man. For a moment, Junpei froze. Try as he might, his eyes would not leave the corpse, and his feet would not leave the floor. Seve, too, seemed paralyzed. Snake, on the other hand, seemed unconcerned. He walked calmly down the bloody hallway, and only stopped when he realized his companions were not following. Do you intend to kill me? I assume you haven't forgotten. The door only remains open for 9 seconds, have you? He hadn't even bothered to turn around. His head was, at most, slightly cocked toward one shoulder. Junpei and Seve looked at one another, nodded, and threw themselves through the door. As they did, a cold tone sounded from the left wrists of all 3 men. Seve and Junpei looked down at their bracelets. On both of them, and on Snake's, a red skull had flickered to life. The detonator had begun its countdown. They had scarcely processed this information when... With a metallic slam, the numbered door behind them swung shut. Unless they could find the device that would deactivate... Swang? What the hell is that? Unless they could find a device that would deactivate the detonators on their wrists. They would not be leaving the hallway.
Hey, where's the dead?
Fear and urgency in Seven's face reflected what all 3 of them felt. Junpei spun around, searching desperately for the dead. He found it easily enough. It was on the wall next to the closed door labeled 5. I found it! Right here! As he yelled, he struck the scanner with his hand. The other 2 scrambled to follow suit. As soon as they finished, Snake threw the lever down. Phew. Well, it looks like it stopped. As he spoke, Junpei wiped the sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand.
Goddamn thing's gonna give me a heart attack.
A muscle stood out in Seven's neck, and the corners of his mouth were twitching. June, are you alright? Junpei, are you alright? Are you guys okay? They could hear anxious voices, muffled but distinct, from the other side of the door. Yeah, we're fine. The detonators have been deactivated. They heard relieved sighs, and even through the door, the 3 men could feel the tension disperse.
Alright, we're moving on. Be careful, okay?
Okay. Sure thing. They heard footsteps moving away, and before long they were alone again. Junpei looked around. The hallway hit a dead end, 20 or 30 feet from where they stood. A thick iron wall blocked their way. Try as they might to force it, the wall refused to move. To the left, however, was a wooden door that looked positively inviting by comparison. In the middle of it was a plaque that read, First Class.
A first-class cabin, huh?
Well, it seems like it. Let's have a look then, shall we? Without hesitation, Snake opened the door and stepped inside. Seve followed closely behind him. Junpei moved to follow them as well, but... He stopped just short of the threshold, and looked back, not knowing why. Lying in the small hallway was a man's body, or at least what was left of it. He tried hard to avoid looking at the grisly scene, but it just wouldn't leave his mind. What once had been a man's internal organs now looked like so much vomit, as though something had chewed up and spit out the better part of his torso. It was hideous, but worse still, it was cruel. It was hard to believe the thing on the floor had once been human. The black pool of thick blood, the lumps of glistening flesh spread across the floor, the awkward, twisted angle of shredded intestines, the head wrenched to some grotesque, unnatural position. The man's glasses lay next to his head. The lenses were cracked and the frame bent and distorted. Next to the glasses lay a bracelet, the number 9 still displayed on its face. Lastly, let us discuss how to remove the bracelets. There are only 2 ways to do so. 1. You escape from this ship. 2. your heart rate reaches 0. In other words, once the bracelet is taken outside the confines of the ship, or detects that its wearer's heartbeat has fallen to 0, it will be shut down automatically. Suddenly, Junpei felt his stomach convulse, and a knot of muscle gripped in his throat. He clapped his hands over his mouth and ran into the first-class cabin. The atmosphere changed immediately. The room was gorgeous, and despite the apparent age of the ship, none the worse for wear. He looked around. Seve and Snake were nowhere to be seen. There were 2 doors on the right side of the room. He opened the one on his right and went through. On the other side of the door was a short hallway. He jogged down the hallway, opened the door at the other end, and peeked through. There they were, to his right, busy examining something. He stepped through the door and walked toward them. "What's up?"
Check this out. We found this thing here on the door.
A red light's on. Does that mean it's locked? So I would assume. Is there any other way out?
We looked around a little. Other than this door, we didn't find anything.
So you're telling me that unless we can open this door... Yes, we won't be going anywhere. Junpei stepped away from the door and looked around the room. The room they were in looked like a bedroom. He figured the room he'd originally entered was the living room, or whatever passed one on a ship.
Alright, let's find a way to open this door. Come on, guys.